Tips for managing neurodiverse teams. I'm with Tiffany Smith today, everybody, and I suggest you get your tea or your beverage because you're going to want to hear the tips that this woman has. I've known Tiffany now for, a little bit over a year. And I can tell you the very first time I met her, I'm like, oh my God, who is this person? She's so talented and gifted, and she thinks really smart and has a great personality. And then I got to know her even more, and I still think it a year later. So I asked her to be on the show with us to talk about how she manages a team. She manages a fairly large team with lots of neurodiversity going on and different skill sets and different job responsibilities. So there's lots of variance in what Tiffany has to deal with on a day-to-day basis. Quite frankly, I don't know how she does it. I guess we're going to learn that. So I want to welcome Tiffany onto the show, and then we're going to dive into how to manage these neurodiverse teams. So Tiffany, welcome to Someone Gets Me, and thank you for taking the time out of your day to be with us.
Hi, of course. Little nervous, little excited.
Oh, and that's totally fine because nervousness and excitement are the same biophysically. So we're good. What I would love to start out with, while everybody's getting their tea and coffee and settling down, because we have to listen. What started you in the field of wanting to serve other people and the help?
Well,
How did it get started?
it was kind of random. Anybody that knows me knows I'm into the whole true crime, forensic type thing. And so I originally started out going down one path of wanting to do forensic odontology, completely off topic. And then I just kind of ended up going into got my associates in criminal justice. And then from there, worked for a couple of police departments, decided to go back for psychology because then I really got into forensic psychology. And then once I got my degree in psychology, I thought, okay, now's the time to step into the counseling field to learn more, about mental health, substance abuse, kind of what triggers criminals to kind of do what they do from a different standpoint. And so I started working in the field that we're in now, and that's where I've stayed since then.
So are you going to go back in and pursue more of the forensic psychology kind of things?
I've thought about it heavily. It's definitely on my mind. I've looked into it. Where I got my undergraduate from was Liberty University, and they do offer a master's degree in forensic psychology. So we'll see.
Oh, that's great. See, I would have loved it. My niece studied forensic psychology. I'm so old. They didn't have a forensic psychology plan then. Same thing with neuroscience that we all know I love so much. Those weren't offered to me, or I probably would have done them. So I did behavioral psych, which is the closest we could get to it. And so I'm always fascinated by people who are fascinated with forensics, if that makes sense. So I think that's really fun. So tell us a little bit about the diversity in thought processing, belief systems, and things like that of the team that you manage. Like when you think about all the people that you manage, what are some of the diverse little points that pop out that you go, oh, okay, this sets this person apart, that person apart, that kind of thing?
We'll start from the lower end. We've got some very quiet people who are kind of like standoffish, stay to themselves. They want to come in, get their work done, go home. And then we have those on the complete opposite end who are just loud and they're here to have fun. I mean, they want to get their work done too, but they also want to have fun, and mingle with everybody. And so that's really the biggest range. But then as far as like individually, there are some that are more analytical when it comes to like learning and how they work. They have to stick to a straight schedule. This is what I need to do today. This is what I got to do tomorrow. This is what I got to do next month. And then we have those that kind of just wing it. And they're like, hey, I'm going to come in. What happens, happens. And they both ends kind of trigger the other one. So it's a process trying to figure out how to keep them apart, but have them work together at the same time also.
Right. Because it's like, whoa, what do you mean? You're so organized? No, what do you mean? You're not organized. How does that all work? Right. I could see it just hearing you say that. So when you have all of this difference in personality and work style and processing, and a lot of people I mean, I'm assuming a lot of the people on your team also have different cultural beliefs and come from different parts of the world and the different kinds of way they do things too, right?
Yes, I know we've got a couple that have everybody believes in a higher power there. And, we have, I think for the most part, there's the majority of the staff are probably Christians, but there's also that breakdown of different denominations within that. At the end of the day, everybody still believes in a higher power. And so I feel like that doesn't necessarily play a big role in how they are, until it comes down to personal life experiences, where, we've got people that are in have been in recovery themselves, and so they see things from the perspective of the patient, and then we have those that have never been anywhere near that, and so it's kind of trying to get that to mesh so that those people that have lived it can understand where the ones who haven't are coming from. And then we have those that are in the middle, or that may have family members that may struggle with addiction, and so that really plays a part in how they see things.
Right. Yeah. Even if it's not like an overt belief system that's in your face, it it guides decisions and processes and how people hear and behave, I would think, right?
Hmm.
So how do you, with all these differences, how what kinds of things do you do? Like some tips that you do that help people feel included and part of the team, even when maybe they might be an outlier in any one of these aspects, whether they realize it or not. Like, how do you bring people together and have people feel cohesive and included?
I think the biggest thing is listening to everybody individually. Because just by like being able to sit down and have a conversation with each team member individually, then when we're in a group setting, I know, okay, hey, this person, they they clearly are uncomfortable, and I can tell they don't feel heard. So then I can take a step back and be like, hey guys, let's let this person talk so they can get their point across.
Yeah, that's great. I think listening to what they're saying and listening to what they're not saying.
Right.
Right. Because I think sometimes people send a message in ways, like what they leave out.
It's a lot of body cues and facial expressions.
Right. Right. Right.
But it's I've really gotten to know over the years, so I can pick up on little like eye gestures, and I'm just like, oh, this isn't going good.
So you basically learned how to manage this kind of team um by the seat of your pants, so to speak.
Yes.
Right? I mean, like
Yeah.
you didn't go get a graduate degree in managing neurodiverse teams.
Not at
And
all.
and so you've learned how to do it. So what quality in you do you think, or qualities in you do you think set you apart enough to be able to be successful at this kind of thing? Like what about you made it so that you can deal with all these people?
I honestly don't know. I mean, everybody tells me I'm a good listener, and I try to get to know each person, like I said, individually, so that I can know what drives them, what their beliefs are, so that I could be the best supervisor that I can be. And I also want to make sure they're heard, what they're saying is passed on to the higher ups. And so basically just learning them throughout the years. Just it's all about sitting, watching, listening, and observing.
Right. And I think that's an important point. I think that's a really important tip is that the investment in listening and paying attention, and in that there is a level of empathy and care. So people feel like they're heard and they're cared about. So therefore they would trust you more. And then that allows the coming together to happen even if people don't really see eye to eye. That's
Right.
that's what it makes sense to me a lot. Yeah, that's really cool. So how do you accommodate different communication styles, like the soft people, the quiet people, and then the people who aren't so quiet? How do you accommodate that?
My style is basically one on one. If I know that a topic that's going to be discussed is going to cause chaos, then I'll send an email.
Oh, that's smart. And because then people will come into your office, right?
Yep, because they'll come in like one at a time, and they'll complain about what they need to complain about or voice their opinions about it. And I can either like jot it down and be like, hey, send me an email about it. Because if I know it's going to cause chaos in a group setting, then I want to eliminate that. Because and then, this person's going to feed off this person, and then this person's going to feed off this person. But then this person over here is going to be like, oh gosh, this is too much. So In those situations, email works best. But if
Yeah.
I know that, it's something that the group's going to come together on and kind of agree and work together as a team, then I'll bring it to the group and kind of like I do in our meetings, ask each person individually so that we're not all trying to overtalk everybody.
Because I imagine that when you have a lot of people who are passionate about things, there can be a lot of interrupting and talking over and thrashing, almost kind of like I can imagine like a little bit of chaos happening. And now you're in the middle of like a referee to get everybody quiet down enough to actually listen to what other people do, right?
Yes, I unfortunately learned that the hard way back in 2020 when COVID was in its prime and we were doing like all of our staff meetings virtual. And there was kind of an argument between two counselors that came up, and I'm sitting there trying to figure out how to mute both of them, and they're just yelling back and forth at each other, and I'm just like, okay, what is happening? What is happening? Let's not do this. I couldn't click the mute button, and then I have another counselor saying, Tiffany, stop them, and I'm like, I'm trying. So from then on, I was like, yeah, if it's going to cause confusion and chaos, we're just going to send an email about it.
So you learned by fire and you found a different way that works a lot better.
Yes.
Have you ever had anybody get so heated and upset that they left? They
Like
walked out. They
that
walked out.
meeting,
Walked out of a staff meeting or walked out of work for a little while to calm down.
not with me, but yes. Yes. And, in those situations, if they walk out, then I'll send them a quick text and be like, hey, if you need to take the day, take the rest of the day. If you need to go to the store and come back, do that, just take the time to, regroup, calm down. And then if you want to come back in and talk about it, you can. If not, that's fine too.
Oh, that's cool. And I think that level of being heard and understood and cared about is one of the things that's so important, especially with neurodiverse people, because they tend to be very sensitive and um, have a lot of empathy and very intense at the same time,
Hmm.
right? Which you have all those things too, right? Um, and so they're mirroring it back to you on some level. So, how do you handle conflict with them? Like if there's conflict between different parts of people of your team or maybe even different areas or whatever, what are some good ways? Because everybody asks me all the time, interview somebody who can help with how do we handle conflict, because neurodiverse people don't do it the way other people do it.
Yeah.
You
Um,
can't tell them to shut up and be quiet. They'll just escalate. So,
right.
right. So how do you handle when there's a conflict of any kind? Like, what do you do?
If it's between like two staff, first thing I want to do is separate them. I don't want them yelling at each other back and forth. I want to give them that opportunity to kind of like think things through. And even if it takes a day or two to address it with the two of them together, I want to address it with them individually first. That way I can kind of say, okay, this is where this person is coming from, and this is where the other person is coming from. There's no hard feelings. Nobody meant it to be, targeted towards you or offensive or anything like that. This is just their viewpoint. A lot of times, if I address it individually, then it helps kind of diffuse the situation. But then there are times where I'm like, listen, this is something that you two need to sit down and address. I've had instances where I pulled two counselors in my office that were kind of going at it, and had them I just let them go at it in my office. To be perfectly honest, like they yelled, screamed, said what they had to say, and I looked at them both and I said, listen, at the end of the day, you don't have to like each other, but you got to work together. I just need you to come in, do your job, help the patients, and then you can go home and not like each other. It's that simple. No one's asking you to be a family. No one's asking you to be friends. If you are, wonderful. I love it. But at the end of the day, I just need you guys to learn how to work together professionally. That's it.
Oh, that's great. So that sounds really stressful to be in an office with two other people arguing and fighting. So how do you handle your own stress level? How do you discharge your stress? What do you do for you for your self-care?
I diamond paint aggressively.
Diamond painting. Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. So typically I will do a diamond painting a week. If I have more time in the afternoons, then I can knock out your standard like 30 by 40 in like 2, 3 days. Cause I just come home and I sit down and I get lost in it. I would turn on like a court case on YouTube or a movie, and I'll just sit here and I'll just pluck away at these little dots.
So what does doing diamond painting do to help you? How does it ease your stress? Does it just kind of clear your mind or help you relax, or what's
It's
the
one of those things where I don't really have to put much thought into doing it because it's laid out. You know that these colors go on these letters or numbers, and so it just calms my mind. I'm not thinking about, what's going on over here, what needs to be done tomorrow, what has to be done next week, what's due by this date. I'm just sitting here, no thought whatsoever, diamond painting.
right? So it gives you that your body and your soul and your mind time to come back to its own equilibrium.
Yes. You can reset.
So what else do you do for your own self-care?
Well, I also have my dog. So I like to play with her, especially since she's getting older, and less mobile now, unfortunately. Um, so I spend time with her. We'll toss the ball. She'll go get it, bring it back. I spend time with friends outside of work, spend time with family. Um, but for the most part, I'm just at home diamond painting or watching a movie, just chilling.
That's really great. So when you're getting to know somebody at the very beginning and you're trying to like sort out how to work with them as a supervisor, right? Like maybe a new hire or something like that. Or maybe somebody you just don't know well yet. What are some things that you listen for to help you understand them more?
The main things I kind of listen for are the questions that they have at first, because that's going to tell me, okay, these are the areas where they may need more assistance, or maybe this is not the way it's being done, is not how they learn. And so, from picking up on the way people learn things, that also kind of helps me. Okay, there, if you need to be more hands on, then I know, okay, moving forward, if I'm going to send you something, maybe I need to include step by step pictures to show you how to do it, or come in there and show you how to do it, or in like some cases, people can learn by watching. Me, I need to actually physically do it. So that's one of the reasons why a lot of times I'll come into a counselor's office and be like, go here, go here, go here. So they kind of get in that rhythm of knowing where to click and where to go for themselves instead of just watching. But it's all about just like listening to the first couple questions they have when they first come in, really.
Yeah, I think that's really key too, because they tell on themselves, right, just by the way the question is or what it is they even need to know or think they need to know,
Yep.
that kind
Uh,
of thing.
I also like to see who they gravitate towards more that's already there.
Oh,
So by letting them sit with different counselors and not necessarily assigning them to counselors, by saying, okay, sit with somebody today. If I notice that they're going to sit with this one person consistently, I'm going to be like, okay, that's more of the kind of personality that they have. So I know how to address them moving forward.
kind of like the halo effect. I know this other person, so and you're drawn to them, so there's a little bit of commonality here.
Yep.
Yeah, oh my god, that's genius. That's really amazing. So a couple other questions that are coming to mind that I think are really fun. What I'd love to know is, you said that your learning style is hands-on.
Hmm.
You like to learn, you do because you like to do those kinds of things. What are things that you would like to learn that you haven't learned yet? Like if you were going to pick something new to learn about that you don't know anything about yet, what are some things that kind of pique your interest?
It's definitely here recently. I've been big into watching body language experts. I know it still goes along with forensics, but I've been like watching a lot of body language experts on YouTube, like talk about, they've been analyzing Gypsy Rose or, other criminals in the past based off of interviews. Um, so I would really like to study more of that. But then when it comes to like crafts and stuff, I've always had an interest in like DIY remodeling. I don't have a house, so I don't really have anything to remodel. Um, but I would love to maybe one day in the long future remodel a house, like just going in, laying floors, doing the backsplash, just all that stuff right there.
Oh, that would be really fun.
Yeah.
Doing that. I laid all the tile in my second home in Florida, and everybody's like, "You're crazy." I'm like, "No, this is fun. I'm loving it. I loved every
Yeah.
and it looked really good, and I was really proud of myself, and it was fun to do. It was not just the outcome, it was the whole process. I really enjoyed that.
Hmm.
I think that's really fun. So, what kinds of things do you enjoy doing that are, might we say, different than the other people that you work with?
Staying at home.
Well, because maybe most of the people go out more, right?
Yes, they on the weekends, they're like, "I've got this plan, this plan, this plan." I'm like, "I'm just gonna stay at home and do nothing." Like, my vacation time coming up, people are like, "Where are you going?" "Nowhere. I'm staying at home."
Yeah. And
'Cause,
so
you know,
that's a big difference that you're grounded a lot differently than a lot of the people around you.
yes, I have to, because at the end of the week, like, from dealing with all the staff and then all the patients just constantly bombarding me, it's kinda like, "Okay, I just need to not be around people."
Yes, and for reference here, Tiffany has a staff of what, 30 or 40 people underneath you, somewhere in there, 20, 30, somewhere in there?
It's fully staffed, 10 counselors, 6 nurses, 2 nurse practitioners, and 1 medical director, 1 currently 2 admins, and then 1 when we have 1 security.
Right, so that's around 20 people, a
Yeah.
little more. And and then Tiffany's also in the middle of all of that with all the different viewpoints and over 400 patients to take care of, and it's, addiction's a life-threatening disease, and so there's a lot to it underneath it all because there's a lot of responsibility. And then Tiffany's also responsible for managing all of this, plus interacting with upper management and making sure that the program, as a program director, runs smoothly. So, what is a really great story that you have? Because I know there's probably hundreds, but what's a story that pops in your mind that would give the listener an idea of what your day is like? Like, what do you have, something that you've had to deal with that demonstrates the fact that there's a lot of diversity in the world, and it's a good thing you've learned how to manage it.
I would say the best example would be when the power goes out or the internet goes out, because power goes out, everybody has to come to the lobby and sit because most of the offices don't have windows, so they're pitch black. So that means that all the staff is in the lobby at the same time, along with all of the patients coming in. And so then you have to kind of have some staff outside letting patients know, hey, we have no power. If you're using a card, you got to go get cash. And then you've got the admin at the front who's trying to check people in and making sure they're getting the right cash and writing down the number and how much they paid. And then you have to give them like a sticky note to go stand in line, to go wait for the nurses to come dose them. The nurses have to learn how to function with a lantern and the hand pumps while giving the patient the correct dose. Um, and so there's some nurses that do better on the electric pumps, some do better on the hand pumps, some that handle chaos a little bit better, some that add to the chaos.
Right? Right.
and, so, and then you're going to have those in the lobby that are mad because, they had 10 patients stop today and they are getting ready to go on vacation. Or, you have somebody that may come in impaired, so you have to stop and deal with that as well. So that would be probably the best example of having everybody together, all the personalities all at once.
Right. And so you get to really see all the diversity in processing and ways of being and how people respond under stress, both patients and staff.
Yes.
Oh, that's amazing. So, is there anything you wanted to talk about today that I have not asked you about?
So, not necessarily from my standpoint, as far as like neurodivergency, I am not familiar with that at all. So, when you first brought this up to me, I was like, what is that? What does that mean? Could you tell me a little bit more about that?
Neurodi to be neurodivergent means that somebody's brain is developing in a different way than the norm. And so it's typically the phrase used for people who are on the autism spectrum, have really severe ADHD, things like that. I personally believe that everybody is neurodiverse because no two of us are made the same neurologically. So my view is quite different, I guess, than a lot of other people. But the term is used commonly to describe somebody who falls outside the big part of the curve, outside of the norm of how they process. So, like, for example, somebody that's on the higher neurodiverse scale, like in the autism spectrum, might have difficulty with social cues, might speak louder or faster, or not know when to leave the room, or or have difficulty with intimacy or like connection with people because they're just out there. They're an outlier that way, and the way their brain functions and their neurology functions is different. And so you have that, and then you have people who are more what we call neurotypical, and the neurotypical people are the people that they fall in the big part of the bell curve, and so we would call them kind of like average. They just do like what you kind of would expect that you would read about in the textbook when somebody does this and somebody does that. They're not typically sensitive. And so, like what you've taught me about you is that you have a flavor of neurodiversity because you have very strong empathy. You can see and know things that other people can't see and know. And you have a way of being able to kind of feel into a situation or a person, which is that listening part of you, right? That allows you to have a non-normal and non-typical way of handling something. And so that would be neurodivergent by my definition.
Okay.
And I'm much more liberal than others because I really think it's important. Like, I would term you as a multi-potentialite as well, which is somebody who's got multiple interests in lots of things and is good at them. Not like the jack of all trades. Like I like a lot of stuff, but I don't know how to do them. But like you love art and you love crafts and you love creating things and you like being around people and you like socializing and you love your dog and we can go on and on and on. And that's what we term a multi-potentialite, which is somebody who likes lots of things and is very good at them. And then you see the strategist person who does one thing, that's what they're good at, and don't make them come off that railroad track and they're fine. But do not put them over here because they won't be able to do it. And we need both on all the teams. Like all of these pieces are, I believe, very important on a team. And so when you have a neurodiverse team, especially because to be a counselor and have an advanced degree, to go to nursing school and have to have more education than the average bear, typically you're going to find a little bit more neurodiversity because smarter people, it's positively correlated with them. So like I know a lot of the patients that I've worked with over the 4 decades I've worked in this industry, that the people who seem to suffer the most and have the most grief and pain typically are musicians or artists, or they have some other really amazing part to them. And they're typically smarter than the average bear. Like when you really get down to it, it's almost like you want to say they're too smart for their britches. That's neurodivergence in action, those kinds of things. And so that's why I asked you to be on the show because you have experience in all of it, even though you don't use the word, which I think is important for everybody because so many people go, well, I don't want to use the word gifted. I don't want to use those words. And I'm like, well, okay, you don't have to use the words, but it's still a thing. Use whatever word you want to, it's a thing. The overexcitability. Talk to us a little bit about your response to weird textures of food.
Oh, no. Mm-mm. One thing I can't do is soggy bread. Absolutely not. Cannot.
Right. And there's a lots of other food related things that are texture related that will send you over, right? Well,
Yep.
that is what in the gifted world we call that an overexcitability, essential overexcitability. The senses get wonky as it's too intense. And that's a sign of a gifted person that only gifted people have those things. And so and gifted means a higher IQ and a higher connection, and fast thinking and that kind of thing. And if you think about your sensitivity level on things like what happens if somebody comes in your office and they're crying?
Well, the first thing I'm going to come do is sit down.
Right.
I
And
said,
then,
shut the door, have a seat. What's going on?
and so do you have an emotional response?
The first thing is to try to figure out what's going on. What is causing them to feel this way is my
Right.
first response. And then, once I listen to them, then it's, what can I do on my end to kind of help them or kind of ease the situation. If I can't, then I'm definitely gonna, be there to provide suggestions of things they can do once they leave. Um, just I call them the basics, but that's how I handle it.
Right, there are basics for you, but maybe not for other people. But
Yeah.
see, you have a level of compassion and a level of care. It's not just all in your head. So there's all of these different pieces that make somebody in my world more neurodiverse than others. And so when you bring a group of people together, since no two people are the same, and we all have different autobiographies and different ways of interpreting all the information that's coming through our senses, and we have different levels of sensitivity, and we're all working on whatever we're all working on in our own personal development journey, then it makes sometimes for some exciting and interesting and dicey and boring situations. It's all of those. The answer is yes. So I think that part of your natural ability is that ability to handle neurodiverse people in a way that's respectful and honorable and caring, yet very good, clear boundaries. You do not have squishy boundaries, not since I've known you. And I think that's important, the clear boundaries.
That's another one I had to learn coming into this. I took the position back in 2020, went from, counselor, having my sessions all month every day. And they're like, hey, you want to apply for this position? And I was thinking, not really. Mm-mm. But I mean, I will. And then got the position and I'm like, what do I do now? What do I do? And it was really, I would say, more challenging then to manage the staff because there were people that I had worked alongside. And now some of these people who have been in the field longer than me, they trained me coming in. So it's kind of like, hey, I know you trained me, but I'm not going to tell you what to do. So it was learning to adjust to that. And kind of, for me, it was a fake it till you make it type situation where it'd be like, okay, I'm sweating bullets over here, but I got to go tell this person you did this wrong and I need you to fix it now.
Right, right. And so there's a big learning curve in that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So, um, a question that I have from one of the last questions I have is, what is the most memorable food you've ever eaten?
Mango guava cheesecake
Ooh,
but without the almonds. There's a Vietnamese place in Greensboro that me and my best friend used to go to at least once a week, back when I was at Guilford Tech. And we would go there every week and get pho and mango guava cheesecake. It was to the point where we would call and they'd be like, no cheesecake today. But it was like the graham cracker crumbs, and then it was like a layer of a mango cheesecake topped with like a guava mousse, and they would put like almonds on top and like drizzle some caramel, however you say it, on it. But I don't like nuts in my food, so no almonds on top. But it was, to this day, I've never had a cheesecake that good, and I'm pretty sure it was frozen, but it was still good.
wow, that sounds really good. That sounds really good. And so you just kind of told on yourself with the sensory overexcitability with, no, I can't do almonds in my food. I'm just pointing that out. All right. So your final question, and you've been so patient with me and you've given so many valuable tips. I so appreciate it. The final question is, if we were going to put a billboard up that the entire world was going to see with Tiffany Smith's message, what message would you like the whole world to see from you?
Mm, the thing that I try to remind staff and myself, and pretty much everybody, that I come in contact with, is to never look down on somebody else because you never know when you could be in their position. It could happen in a split second. So you never want to kind of treat anybody beneath you because that could be you.
That's a very, very good one. Never treat anybody like they're beneath you. I love it. Well, I want to thank you very much for being on Someone Gets Me with me today and humoring all of my questions and all of my curiosities and being so open and honest. And I'm sure everything you said was really helpful to all of the listeners in all the 72 countries that we're in. So thank you, Tiffany, for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
It was been so much fun. So remember, everybody, to put your face to the sun so the shadows fall behind you because you're a rock star. You're here on purpose with a mighty purpose. So go out there and listen to what Tiffany says. Whatever you do, don't treat people like they're beneath you. And have a really great rest of your day. And until the next episode of Someone Gets Me, be well.